Welcome, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Jamie. So glad you all are here today at the Mental Health KC webinar. And we're going to get started. A couple of things just to kind of start you guys off. First of all, welcome. We're so glad you guys are here. And you'll notice kind of a few things because we're on Zoom webinar that you're only able to see the presenter, not yourself. But that's okay. You will still be able to communicate with us. You'll be able to communicate through the chat as well as the Q&A. And then, so if you have any questions, if you want to have any comments, we can still connect and you can still, make your voice heard through the chat and the Q&A. And then certificate of attendance will be available at the end of the webinar. You will get a link along with a password. Please save the link and the password. We're going to ask, and we'll save this also at the end. But if we have too many people trying to get the password at the same time and like get the actual certificate using the link and the password, then it actually crashes. So we're going to ask that you please just kind of take your time getting that certificate of attendance with that one contact hour at the end. And again, please save the link, save the password, and that way you can get it in case it's not working. It is working. It just means too many people are trying to get it at the same time. And so tends to crash. But so just so you know, those are a couple little housekeeping things. And then with that, I'm going to do a little bit of talking about Metro Council and about Kelsey. We're so excited you guys are here. As I said, this webinar is through Metro Council and just a little bit about Metro Council and kind of what it is. And so we are um, a collaborative of all the community public mental health centers and systems throughout the greater metro Kansas City area. So with that, it includes University Health Behavioral Health, Swope Health, Rediscover Mental Health, Comprehensive Mental Health, Beacon Mental Health, Wyandotte Behavioral Network, Johnson County Mental Health Center, Mental Health America of the Heartland, and Center for Behavioral Medicine. So all of us encompass Metro Council, and we provide support, we provide education, information, resources to the public about mental health. And one thing I want to say really quick is please save the date. We have our Mental Health KC conference coming up May 28th and 29th at Johnson County Community College. We would love for all of you to attend. We will be having two national keynote speakers, actually over 80 breakout sessions. This year, we're actually adding more breakout sessions so that we hopefully can have more people attend. And we also provide pre-approved CEUs as well for a very small additional fee. And we try to make this conference as accessible and as affordable and as exciting as possible with as many topics as you can probably think of around behavioral health. So we hope that you're able to attend. Please save the date. As I said, May 28th and 29th. We are still accepting poster submissions. So if you have a poster that you'd like to present, we're still accepting posters. And so, yeah. Come join us. It'll be lots of fun. I should say the time. Sorry, it is check-in and networking starts at 8 a.m. on May 28th. Goes until 4 p.m. on May 28th, and then May 29th is 8 a.m. again with networking, and then goes until 12:30. So with that also includes lunch, snacks, all of that is all included. So again, we hope you attend. And with that, I am so excited to introduce Kelsey. And Kelsey's going to be talking about Beyond the Game, supporting athletes' mental well-being. But I do want to give you a little brief bio about Kelsey. Kelsey Carlton LMFT is a licensed marriage and family therapist at Country Crossroads Counseling in rural Missouri and the founder of their Community Crisis Coalition. A former athlete and current youth sports coach, Kelsey brings a unique perspective to the intersection of mental health and athletes. She's certified in both EMDR and trauma-focused CBT and specializes in trauma-informed care. And as a mom of two young athletes, Kelsey's passionate about helping families, coaches, and communities support mental wellness both on and off the field. And we are so excited to have you. It actually just came to my attention that this coincides perfectly with the Winter Olympics. So I actually didn't even do it on purpose. We were just so excited to hear Kelsey's presentation that I wanted her to present as early as possible. But we're so excited to have you. And quick little disclaimer, we do this for all of our webinars. All of our webinars are for education purposes only. And just so everybody knows, the views and opinions presented are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Metro Council. But with that, so excited to introduce Kelsey, and you can take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. I know we just did a run through here, so let's see if I can get it to work for me again. Believe it or not, I'm not very tech savvy. Okay. Jamie, thumbs up. You're the only one Perfect. Okay.
You're good.
All right. This is Beyond the Game, supporting athletes' mental well-being. So today is pretty fun because we get to talk about this approach in like a multifaceted kind of way. We're talking about the importance of, mental health with the athlete, what coaches can do, the role of the therapist, and just an entire support system as a whole. Like Jamie had said, I'm Kelsey Carlton. I normally have a co-pilot with me. Her name's Jeannie. Her and I made this together. Unfortunately, she's not here with us today. So we are both from Country Crossroads Counseling. We offer a variety of services, and our service list just continues to grow. It's been amazing and beautiful, and we have so many wonderful counselors that are trained and specialized in so many different things. We offer services in 32 different schools, as well as 8 different office locations, and we are only growing. So we are definitely looking for individuals that are motivated and want to continue, getting the word out about mental health to the masses. I don't know if I was supposed to try and recruit, but here we are. Okay, so what the heck do I know? When we take this presentation on the road, we get to talk to a bunch of high school students, and that's always fun. But you often forget how intimidating high school, especially high school girls, can be. And so, being a young therapist and standing up in front of teenage girls who, are mad at the world and hormones that are difficult to control, can be a little intimidating and maybe not as fun for us as we had originally anticipated or for them. And so we always joke with them. We're like, what the heck do we know? We're just 2 girls that peaked in high school. And so I like to kind of go over my credentials as well. Aside from, my being a licensed therapist, growing up, I played volleyball, basketball, and softball. Played softball year round, actually. Accepted a full ride softball scholarship, had verbally committed, and was very sick during my tryout. Long story short, thought I had food poisoning. Turns out my food poisoning actually just turned 9 years old. And so I was unable to go play college softball. But she has been an absolute blessing, and she is following very closely in my footsteps. This is actually her competitive team, this second picture from the left. I am the only female on our 4-man coaching staff. And so I bring definitely a different perspective than some of my other coaches. But we've got backgrounds from baseball, backgrounds from speed and agility and weight training. So we bring a good diverse approach to help our girls. They are currently a 10U team, but we have been together for a few seasons. This picture on the left here, that is actually in the state championship my junior year, which was the very first year that we were allowed to go to state. So lots of background, lots of experience, with sports as well as the mental health side of things, going through my own trials and tribulations in life, as well as having my dad as a coach, which we can get more into here in a little bit, as well as some trauma. So, being able to intertwine both of these experiences, both of my worlds is super fun. And I get to, spread the knowledge to high school students, athletes, coaches, organizations, mental health professionals like you all. So it's super fun. Okay, true or false. So this is kind of going to be a pre-test. So I want you guys to try to remember, because when we come back to them at the end, I want you to compare your answers. So true or false. You can train your brain for resilience the same way you train your body for strength. Practicing every day is the only way to get better. Being anxious or depressed means you don't love your sport. Pushing through mental exhaustion is part of being a strong athlete. If I'm having a bad game, all I have to do is think positive thoughts. Collegiate and professional athletes engage in mental wellness programs. Okay. Give you guys just a second to kind of reflect and jot down what you think, true, false. Keep those in your brain. We're going to come back to them. Oh, use my mouse. Okay. So, as mental health professionals, we often hear about how common, certain diagnoses are, or what general populations we're working mostly with in our different areas. Mental health in athletes is one of the areas that often gets overlooked because they are in the spotlight, but it's performance based. And so the mental health side of things kind of falls to the wayside. But these stats here prove to us that mental health and even the most professional of athletes is an issue. 48% of female athletes and 31% of male athletes have reported mental health challenges, ranging anywhere from anxiety all the way up to severe depression and even some of the further adjustment disorders, things like that. And of course, we have higher risk among athletes that are of color, LGBTQIA plus athletes, and athletes that come from like lower SES or still currently live in poverty, believe it or not. And on the other, the flip side of things, the 40% of coaches also report feeling emotionally exhausted on a nearly daily basis. So not only are athletes struggling, our coaches are struggling as well. There's lots of stigma, pressure, and performance that contribute to the silence about the mental health in athletes. So we're going to kind of talk about what do we do with this? We know it's a problem. Now what happens from here? So here's some graphs for my visual learners. That is also me. The graph on the left side here, mental health disorders in college sports. So we've got male athletes in yellow, female in blue. And as you can tell, for the most part, they kind of go back and forth, but depression, anxiety, stress, and difficulty sleeping were the main 4 complaints from athletes. And then the right graph here, we have from coaches. Coaches feeling, head coaches are the blue, sorry, the yellow is assistant. And most of our coaches are feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and also experiencing sleep difficulties. So again, we've got a system here that's struggling as a whole. One of my favorite quotes, you don't get any medals for suffering in silence the longest. Okay, so the stigma, the pressure around being perfect and, allowing our stats to kind of dictate our worth. We don't get a medal for, being miserable. We don't get a medal for being the strongest and toughing it out, even though we're burnt out. So I think that's really powerful. And it's a quote that I use with my clients that are athletes, but also we use this approach, this normalization, this, thought challenging and reframing with people that are also stuck in really tough situations and are struggling to kind of move from that pre-contemplative stage to the action stage. Okay, have a vignette here for you guys. If you want to use the chat box and just drop in some notes, that would be great. Coach Marcus is a 38-year-old former college linebacker, now coaching a high school football team. He's steady, respected, and reliable, the kind of coach that parents trust and players look up to. What most people don't see is that since the season ended, Marcus has been struggling. A recent divorce, financial stress, and the pressure to always be strong have left him exhausted and irritable. He's sleeping poorly, snapping more during practice, and feeling drained by a role that once energized him. Still, he shows up early every day. These kids need me solid, he tells himself. After a tough loss, a player admits he feels like he's letting everyone down. Marcus offers reassurance, about resilience and growth. The player leaves feeling lighter. Later that night, alone in his truck, Marcus wonders who he would turn into if he admitted he's not okay. He tells his players that strength isn't about never struggling. He's just not sure yet how to believe that applies to him as well. Okay, so first question, what is the first thing that you notice as a mental health professional? What kind of approach would you take if Marcus was your client? Got some stuff popping up.
So someone said, who do you go to for support?
I can't. Guys, I told you I'm not good with technology. Who do you go to for? Okay. First thing that stands out, Marcus is struggling. Yes. Has external stressors, divorce. Yep. Okay. Now, as let's say a coach, as a coach, how do we approach a player like Marcus? Put your oxygen mask on first. Yes, I love that. We can't fill our other people's cups if our cup is empty. Work-life balance. Good. Yep. So helping Marcus kind of figure out a happy medium there, working through burnout. Good. Okay. Um, how would we work with Marcus as a coach now? Not as the fact that he shares with his players that strength isn't about never struggling, shows he has some insight. Yeah. So making sure that he's applying his own insight. As a coach, talk to him, let him know what I, the coach, has seen. Good. Okay. Now, as a coach, how do we approach maybe our head coach or maybe a coworker if we notice that things at work are starting to fall to the wayside? Why do we have a different approach for Marcus as a client than we do as a coach or one of our athletes with empathy, honesty, and support? Having a conversation and simply ask what is going on. How can I help? Yes, I love that, Victoria. How can I help? Even if they are not able to tell you what they need from you or what the solution is or what can help them, sometimes just being there and being able to validate and listen and provide a safe space to allow them to offload. Sometimes that's enough. As long as Marcus knows that you're a safe place and he can use you as a safe support, then we've built a good rapport, whether whatever kind of dynamic that relationship looks like. Okay. So what are the strategies? How do we do this? There are four different things that we're going to talk about. One being open conversation. So we're normalizing a lot of their struggles. We're developing different mental health programs, and we're going to look at some of the other programs that have been successfully implemented. Teaching, also implementing some different techniques to help athletes or clients that are struggling, as well as how do we incorporate our staff. Because we know as therapists, as mental health professionals, we have to work with the system, right? And so working with just the athlete is surface level, but we need to go deeper. We need to be talking to the coaches. We need to be talking to the, um, oh, sorry, guys. Jamie, what does the spotlight mean? It just,
It just means you get to be like spotlighted. That's all.
oh, shoot. Okay. Sorry.
You're good.
Okay. Um, back to the teaching, implementing. We're working with the system and our whole staff, like our first aid, our even our school nurses, right? Like our athletic trainers, our social workers. So we want a multifaceted approach to help to best help our athletes, our student athletes. And then integrate. So we're going to work on some integration of different techniques that can help, as well as whole body based practices. So we're not just working with mental visualization. We're going to be working with muscle relaxation, things like that. Okay, creating a supportive culture. How do we do that? The biggest thing, just like when we work with clients, right, is the rapport. We have to build trust through coach athlete communication. And this has to be, these conversations have to be more content than just their performance. We need to be asking about things at home, things with, a boyfriend, girlfriend. Like, hey, how are your grades looking? I noticed that you were starting to slip in chemistry. That seems to be a common one. Like check in, ask them how they are as a person, as a whole being, and not just an athlete. Reinforcing psychological safety and inclusion. This is huge in teams. Naturally, especially with teenage girls, we see, cliques happen. This is a very organic and natural part of life. And so we have to help work with them as a team unit to help include some of that psychological safety, because if one piece of our puzzle doesn't feel like there's psychological safety, it's going to trickle down and it's going to affect the rest of the team. So just reinforcing inclusion with everybody, addressing harmful or toxic norms such as rub some dirt on it. I hear that a lot. And to an extent, yes, but we don't want to be working with athletes that are going through burnout or students that are going through burnout and expecting them just to continue pushing through. And so being able to acknowledge their toxic norms as well as maybe norms that have been passed down from, a couple generations before. Recognizing effort, not just outcome. So process over perfection. This is a really big one. Whenever I work with my daughter, she just turned 9. She's been playing comp softball since she was 6. And whenever we work with her, we're focusing more on development. We're working more on the fundamentals. I don't care if you went 0 for 3 at the plate on Saturday, right? But I do care that you're being a good teammate and that you're, having positive body language. And so even if she has a tough game after the game, I'm going to say, hey, I saw that you picked up your teammate whenever they were struggling. I'm really, really proud of you for doing that. And so just really reinforcing you are a person, you are a student before you are an athlete. Hey, I know that, we've been working on a new pitch and it didn't work. We threw it in the dirt a couple times, but I'm really proud of you for trying. That's still more progress from, 2 weeks ago. So really, really validating a lot, because the younger that the client or the athlete is, the more validation that they need in order to continue fueling their passion and their love for whatever their vice is: softball, volleyball, wrestling, basketball, football. And of course, promoting positive team norms and peer accountability. Just like in the workforce, if you are uncoachable, you're unteachable, right? And we don't want uncoachable athletes. We don't want employees that aren't flexible or willing to, give a little here and take a little there. And so we want to make sure that we have leaders on the team that can help hold our other players accountable as well. And that starts with the coaching staff. The coaches have to be able to model that for the athletes to see how that's done in a really healthy way. Passion versus push, finding the line. Okay, in the chat box, do you think that it is better to be supportive or demanding as a coach? And why? Supportive. Supportive for sure, but also good to set expectations. I like that. Depends on the player. I like that. Yeah. Supportive. You will get a better response. Both, both, both. Okay. So for the most part, looks like supportive or both / depends. Good. Um, Gosh dang it. Okay, we are going to jump over here and we're actually going to watch a short video.
So I think that's a great question because it's not all yay rah, cheer, cheer, cheer. I think that, when I was reading a book.
Can you guys hear this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So I think that's a great question because it's not all yay rah, cheer, cheer, cheer. I think that, when I was reading a book, and actually a book that's coming out, and a quote from one of my friends who's in higher education, who is now really studying why people persevere. Why do they stick with something? And the best leaders, according to her, are warm and demanding. And you can approach them to go out to dinner, you can approach them about your situation, you can approach them about life off the court, and at the same time, when you get between those lines, there's a demand of operating at an excellent level. Doesn't mean it's demeaning, it's just we have an expectation that you're going to operate at your highest level. Now, sports are competitive environments, are going to bring out emotions in people, and sometimes those emotions won't be good. But you have to recenter yourself as quickly as possible if that happens, because, and ultimately, hopefully nothing terrible happens, but you've got to recenter yourself because you've got to be able to give your players that feeling that, yes, there are expectations, yes, there are great demands, but yes, we realize you're a human being and we're here to help in any way that we can.
Any reflections from that video? Anything specific stand out? Yeah, the importance of high expectations. Good. Just hearing him say warm demands. Yeah, so trying to find that balance, right? Like trying to make sure that they know our athletes feel safe enough to want to come to us, but also making sure that they know when we're in game mode, we're in game mode, and it's important that you're upholding your expectations. And I'll validate and be warm and understanding and all of the things about the life circumstances outside of the game, outside of practice. We want to be able to validate and correct, but we have to have safety in order to do that. Um, there's this quote that I use with my coaching staff for my daughter's softball team, and it's coach them hard, love them harder. And we really are the embody of that because we have a very balanced coaching staff. We have two of us that are pretty firm and direct, and then we have two that are maybe a little bit more laid back and flexible and understanding. And so we have a good balance, but it takes a balance and it takes a long time to figure out how to work as a unit. So is demands used interchangeably with expectations? Yes. Yeah. Because as coaches, we're demanding, but we're also setting those expectations so that they know they have a goal, they have something to work towards or work for, things like that. What are the benefits of being both warm and supportive as well as demanding? We typically see better people, just like high expectation parenting. We want that good, happy medium. Coaching styles are the exact same. These help athletes become more resilient on and off the field or the court, more confident, and more having a healthier mental approach to life in general. We also see more increased effort when coaches are respected by their teams, by their players, their athletes, um, because they are expressing their genuine care and belief in their athletes. Like, I know you can do this, okay? It's just reinforcing to the athlete, like, they see me, they understand. It's another way of validating them, which again helps boost confidence, effort, and enhancing performance. Athletes love playing for coaches that believe in them because they get to play free. They don't have the pressure, the added pressure of trying to play and perform perfectly. And we see greater commitment as well. So challenging athletes, it builds grit and perseverance. We see lots of resilience. When they're pushed toward meaningful and tough goals, we see more work ethic. It really creates a sense of purpose for athletes, and that gets carried forward through life, and helps them understand, like, I have to work for the things that I want in life. It's not going to be handed to me. And so we typically see, especially females that have grown up playing competitive sports or sports for an extended period of time, those female athletes will often become CEOs or higher ranked officials in some sort of business organization, or even within their own company. And so there is a lot of research backing up the effectiveness of playing sports, the importance of it as well. How do we talk about mental health in sports, though? We use approachable language. And as therapists, this gets tricky because we have to avoid jargon or making kids feel like they're being put in a box. Lots of coaches get concerned when there's lack of motivation, and they're like, I think they're depressed. They're not depressed, right? And so we have to be really careful of allowing ourselves to kind of get sucked into that kind of language when it comes to athletes or even clients. And so we want to make sure that we're talking in language that they know. And with teenagers nowadays, that's really difficult. I don't understand half the stuff that comes out of their mouths now. So, but providing visuals or metaphors are always really good. And so if somebody's really upset and really struggling with an injury and not being able to play, we use that as a metaphor for growth and recovery, because yes, this is a setback, but what happens after a setback? The only place we have to go is forward, right? And so we use that as a metaphor to help them view things from more of like a strengths-based perspective. We work on embedding conversations in daily routines. So just like physical wellness, before we stretch, we engage in dynamics or team stretching to make sure that our bodies are warmed up. So in order to help have these daily conversations and not make them so rigid, we need to embed these in our daily routines, just like we do with our stretching. So have it be part of our check-in before practice. Like, where are we at? Scale 1 to 10. Everybody, tell a safe person or tell where you're at, your social battery, or with burnout. Or I remember, being in high school and playing, and coaches checking on us just to make sure that we were still having fun playing the game. And just that check-in alone made a world of difference, because it was validation for us. Like, oh, they do see that we're struggling. They do understand. And so check in, set goals with them. Something that my kids and I do before any game. Actually, my son has a game tonight, and on our way to school drop-off this morning, we're talking about goals. Like, all right, bub, what's your goal for tonight's game? I want 3 baskets and 5 steals, Mom. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, do we feel like that's realistic? And we, take into consideration who we're playing and what kind of week we've had. And we've had a heavy week this week because, we've had 6 games and 2 practices and all the things. And so then we kind of talk about maybe adjusting our goal just a little bit, because the goal isn't for him to set this goal and to wind up disappointed. The goal is for him to be able to check in with himself and say, okay, is this realistic? Is this attainable? And right now he's only 6. And so he doesn't cognitively work like that yet. But as he gets older, it becomes routine. It becomes natural, very organic for him to do. And so we start that as early as we can, and we carry it forward. Leveraging team leaders or captains to model vulnerability, kind of what we talked about earlier, like highlighting effort and changing up who your team captains are based off of practice performance, not based off of the last game who scored the most points. There's so much toxicity with stats, especially in youth sports. I could spend a whole nother hour talking about that. But, model for the team that I don't care what grade you're in. I don't care how old you are. I don't care who your parents are or what your last name is. I'm going to put the best kids, the best athletes for that position in that lineup. And that's the way that it's going to have to be. but rotate that, base that off of what you're seeing at practice, who's being a good teammate, who's, leading with passion and not demands, things like that. Make support accessible and non-punitive. So we never, of course, want to punish an athlete for trying to talk to us, for asking for help, for saying that they're not okay. We still want to be very understanding. Again, lots and lots and lots of validation. Make support accessible. If I tell clients or my athletes, like, if you are struggling, please reach out to me, but I'm never available, that becomes a problem, right? So I have to make sure that I'm either helping them connect with resources or or I'm making myself available to ensure that we're continuing to build that safety, that psychological safety, and that rapport between coach and athlete. Recognizing mental distress in athletes. So we see some of these in our client bases that we work with as well, but lots of irritability, emotional flatness, so just pretty stoic, lots of hopelessness. And so in athletes, this can sound like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to make the shot. This play is never going to work. I can never do anything right, things like that, as well as lots of overthinking. Like if you have an athlete that's typically pretty sharp and you notice that maybe there's a little bit of second guessing and hesitation, it's probably something to be checking in on, especially if it's going on for an extended period of time. Decision fatigue, poor focus, catastrophizing. Well, if I do this, then the whole team's going to hate me, which is like worst case scenario, right? So working with them to challenge and reframe from both a strengths-based perspective, as well as giving them concrete evidence that that's not true, which is really difficult because, as we know, when we work with teens and clients, or even just strong-willed clients, what they feel is what's going to happen. And so just really validating and not arguing, because when we get to this place, especially with athletes, arguing with them is only going to make them want to retreat even more, right? Behavioral signs are probably the most common in burnt out athletes. So we see changes in routines, lots of isolation. Maybe they're not hanging out with the team as much, or even their friends or boyfriend, girlfriend, overtraining. And so if we have an athlete that is struggling to hit a shot, are they staying 2 extra hours after practice and burning themselves at, both ends of the candle? Disordered eating. Are they not eating lunch? Are they skipping lunch? Are they not eating breakfast and then going to the gym early in the morning? We need to be making sure that these are some of the things we're checking in on whenever we are, face to face with our athletes, doing our check-ins and our normal routines with things. Lots of physical injuries as well. This is as to be expected with athletes. But if we notice that there's an athlete that is just constantly having some stomach aches, we might want to pull them and check in with them, because as we know, stomach aches can be a sign of anxiety. And so is there some performance anxiety, some perfectionism? Let's check in and just see what's going on, what kind of cognitive thoughts are going through their head right now. As well as identity indicators, loss of confidence, loss of detachment. We see this with burnout all the time. Like I can't do it, and I don't have the desire, the burn, the drive to do it anymore. And this is super, super common, especially within older athletes, because there is so much outside pressure. There is that stigma around it. So what do we do whenever we notice these signs? And I feel like in today's schools and parents put emphasis on sports at an early age. I'm talking like 7-year-olds and specializing in sport, doing club, lots of tournaments. Yes, Jade, that is very true. There is becoming a much higher, more intense emphasis on early specialization, and that's actually something we're going to talk about here on one of the next slides. So bear with me, we'll get to that. But I also believe that specialization is a huge contributing factor to kids' burnout. Yeah. Jamie asked if I can explain a bit more about what overcoaching is. So overcoaching would be let's go through here. Um, we'll get to overcoaching here in just 1 second, but let's start with the mindfulness rituals. So just like we had kind of talked about, implementing those check-in conversations, let's also start practice with maybe a visualization technique. Have your athletes close their eyes and walk through whatever routine, whether it's a serve or a free throw or a pitch or a swing, right? Like have them walk through the motions, have them picture it. What's it sound like? What's it smell like? What's it feel like? Really tune in to the bodily sensations. Fostering mental toughness, mantras, circle of control, the next play mentality. These are probably my favorites. We do a lot of these, especially with the younger kiddos. We, instead of saying, hey, head up, you got the next one, those things are nice to hear, but they're often overused. And so with my 10U girls, I had a pitcher that would really get in her head if she wasn't hitting her spots. And one day I just yelled pickles because between games it's hot and she always goes to the concession stand and grabs a pickle. And she just absolutely lit up. And so she was smiling and she started dancing and she's one of our leaders. And so once she brought her energy back, of course it carries over to the team. So we have a reset mantra of pickles. And whenever I yell pickles, that means everybody has to look over at Coach Kelsey and they have to smile. And then typically what happens, they look at each other, they do some silly little dance, and then they laugh. And it's essentially like we've shaken it off. We're not thinking about it anymore. We're ready to move on to the next play. So implementing some sort of reset or focusing on the things that are in their control. My high school basketball coach, she's still coaching. She's actually getting ready to coach my kiddos, which is fun and exciting. She said this same phrase throughout my whole high school career, and I have now passed it on to my teams. But there are only two things that we can control. It's our attitude and our effort. And we use that saying whenever we've got frustration with umpires or refs or maybe parents. We really hone things back in on, okay, is that in our control? No, we're allowed to be mad. We're allowed to be upset, but we're not allowed to take it out on teammates. We're not allowed to take it out on coaches, and we're not allowed, to say anything to the ref or the umpire. So implementing some things like that. Overcoaching. So overcoaching can sound several different ways. I know this is kind of baseball, softball heavy. That's kind of our game here in my household, so I apologize. But this is applicable to any sport, any athlete, any client too. But overcoaching can sound a lot like when my daughter steps into the batter's box for softball. I'm saying things like hands up, weight back, on your leg, load. And so I'm giving her too many instructions, and all it's doing is overloading her. She's become anxious. She's now thinking about all of these things that I'm saying. And so for her, it's like, I have to remember all these things. And by the time I go to get myself to swing, catcher's already throwing the ball back to the pitcher, right? And so we want to avoid overcoaching, overcorrecting. We want to make sure that we have a good balance of validation, like, hey, I see that you tried that new footwork. Thank you. I'm really proud of you for doing that. What if we try it this way next time? And so offering kind of that sandwich, that compliment sandwich, right? Like validation, feedback, validation, instead of just always correcting. And Jamie, if that doesn't answer your question, please let me know, and I will be more than happy to go into more detail. As well as providing professional resources. So knowing what resources are available within your area, so that your athletes, your clients have, again, a plethora of resources that they can use. Thank you, Victoria. Okay, so cultivating resilience. This picture is one of my favorites. This is actually my daughter's 10U team. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but the second one on the left, that one's my daughter. She, as you can tell, she's used to doing some visualization. And so right now, this was probably our fourth game, I believe. We had just worked our way out of the losers bracket. It was hot. They were tired. And so we were starting to lose focus and lose energy. And so set them down, close our eyes. We walk through a visualization activity. And for this, it was hitting because we were struggling to swing. and I'm directing it with them or for them, saying, all right, close your eyes, hands on your lap. I want you to take in a big deep breath. Picture yourself stepping into the box. You're doing your routine. Now I want you to picture yourself hitting the ball. Where does it land? What is the defense doing? Where are you running? What are the coaches saying? So again, engaging all of our senses. That way we can focus on some of that somatic and those bodily sensations as well. In order to cultivate resilience in athletes, which is such a big part of being an athlete, we have to give them healthy coping skills. We have to teach them distress tolerance. But probably the bigger piece of that is we have to be able to regulate ourselves as coaches as well, which is really difficult in the heat of certain games when things are just not going your way, and you have some choice words for the umpires or the refs as well. So we have to regulate, and they have to see us using our deep breaths, our finger taps, our walking away, and our own coping skills. That is where they're going to pick up majority of their distress tolerance techniques is going to be from the people in their life, parents, coaches, teachers. We also want to make sure that we're highlighting non-performance. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. That's why it's in here many times. Validation, making sure they know that this is just a game. Okay, but that being the only statement that's made to them, it loses the power, the effectiveness of it, right? And so we want to make sure that we're saying that in different ways too. Like, this softball is not who you are. This is something you do, right? So really externalizing this, because with athletes, their worth gets attached to their performance, and we have to work double as hard to undo that for them. Making sure we're building and maintaining healthy support systems. And that support system looks like professional resources, parents of the other athletes on the team, your coaches, your athletic trainers. If you're working with a big organization, maybe they have massage therapists or behavioral therapists. We have an agency that we work with that has like an occupational therapist on staff. And so build those support systems with whoever and whatever is going to best help your athlete. Encourage reflection, rest, and recovery cycles. This is so big because the generations before this was just as taboo as suicide. And that feels really heavy and really icky to compare those two, but that is the emphasis that they put on not being lazy. And so we need to make sure, again, that we're reframing that when athletes use some of that negative language, such as, no, I'm lazy, or, I have to work harder. We, again, find that balance with them, for them. Reframe their failure as growth, normalize the struggle. Like, hey, buddy, this is part of it. But when we struggle, this is where we grow. Think about how you struggled with that one wrestling move last year, and now you do it all the time, right? And you do it so well. But now we're struggling with this one, but that means that you're getting better, because now we have to move towards more difficult moves, more difficult footwork, things like that. I know there's a lot of information on this one. I'm not going to read it all to you, I promise. So talking about that early specialization, there's, of course, lots of benefits of being a multi-sport athlete. But there's lots of downfalls to being, one of those kiddos that either chooses to specialize early or has parents that are kind of force feeding the specialization. And as coaches, as therapists, as parents, we need to be really, really careful with how we're promoting athletics and making sure that, we're pushing towards multi-sport athletes, because there are so many benefits. We see less burnout. They're more resilient. They have more confidence and feel better, talk better about themselves. They're more disciplined, they're better focused, right? Because they know that they can switch from one task to another. Balanced athletic development. Overtraining for one sport is working the same set of muscles versus when you play volleyball. And that's going to work a whole different set of muscles than when you play basketball, right? And so making sure that, we're balanced athletically, which also helps reduce the risk of injuries as well, or sprains, anything that could be potentially detrimental to the athlete's physical ability. Greater athletic IQ. This is huge. And this is something that you'll hear coaches talk about a lot. You can't teach IQ. It's something that you have to get through experience. And whenever you have an athlete that is more resilient and better equipped to face adversities because of the back and forth transitions with their sports and the different adjustments that requires improved communication with different sets of teams and different peer connections, because you might have a kiddo that plays basketball and doesn't play volleyball, but then plays softball. And so having to know how to communicate with each teammate is super important. And so the multi-sport athletes are the people that we typically see wind up in leadership positions. As you guys can see, I'm not going to read this to you, but delayed specialization. I cannot emphasize that enough. Okay. So if you have an athlete or a kiddo or a client, that's considering this, work through that with them, walk through that with them, and see if maybe we can provide some psychoeducation. But if it's a matter of passion and this is what they want to do, we also have to validate as well. So it is my belief that there is so much pressure put on the coach by the schools and parents. It is about winning and not the healthy development of the child player. This, therefore, gets put back on the child player. Yes, 100%. As someone who had early specialization in softball, I wish I knew this when I was younger. I had 2 knee surgeries prior to being 16. Felt like softball was who I was. I had so much burnout, which was, yes, Sarah, oh my gosh, I empathize with you so much. And I believe it's this next, navigating transitions. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Thank you guys for being vulnerable in the comments. I appreciate that. Reducing stigma. For the sake of time, I'm going to try to fly through this. I told Jamie sometimes I get long-winded. I knew this would happen. So in order to reduce the stigma about mental health in our athletes, we want to use storytelling. So make it personal. Tell them about maybe a time you struggled. Normalizing, humanizing mental health. Hey, every athlete struggles with this. Earlier in the presentation, we saw Jaron Duran. He's a professional baseball player. We saw Simone Biles. She's the most decorated Olympian gymnast in the world. And these athletes have also removed themselves from their sports for a while because they needed to focus on their mental health. And so using their idols or people that they look up to also help can be really effective as well. Celebrate vulnerability, model boundary setting, right? Encourage staff to normalize as well. Make mental health as routine as physical conditioning. So just like we condition at practice every day, we also need to be doing some sort of mental health exercise. We need to work our brain just like we work the other sets of muscles that we're using. Performance only culture, and we need to be focusing more on development. So again, this is part of why we took this presentation on the road, because we wanted to talk to coaches and to schools. And we've been into a couple schools trying to reduce the stigma around this performance only. We are really pushing for more of a development kind of mindset in youth athletics. And that's why we're here. That's why we do what we do. And so the hope is that you guys will take this information and continuing to spread it. Because it again, athletes are one of those populations that kind of get pushed to the wayside because they appear very well put together on the outside. Navigating transitions. So any kind of transition could be injuries, surgeries, age or role transition, losing your athletic identity post-sport. So if softball is all like Sarah and I were just talking about, and you lose your, the state championship your senior year, you're done, and of course the opportunity to continue playing is there if you want it, but being able to express that to somebody that hasn't had to go through that is really difficult, because you do feel like you lost a part of yourself. And it sounds so crazy because people are just like, okay, you just like, you're done playing, that's it. Like it's not really that big of a deal, but it is, because this is like, these are their lives, the foundation. This is all that they know. And actually this picture here in this slide, for those that don't know, this is Bree Ellis. She is one of the nation's best hitters in college softball. She recently went pro, and she was an absolute powerhouse in college. She played for Arkansas, lost her senior year right before the College World Series, ended up going pro, and then nobody heard from her. And so she went very viral on TikTok with videos of her like crying and being very vulnerable with her followers about her mental health and how much of a struggle transitioning from collegiate to pro has been. And that's a tough transition. But think to our athletes that are going from rec to competitive to high school to college, right? Or even sports to no sports. And so we need to be approaching these athletes across the board with the same compassion that Brie Ellis is getting because she went pro. The role of the therapist here, obviously, is to help athletes re-narrate their identity. Again, we're challenging. This is not who you are. You have completely lost yourself to the stats, to the trying to fit in, trying to make yourself known, trying to make your name big because you love this sport so much and you have the drive to be the best. But that's not the end all be all. Like there's still so much more to you. You're a great daughter, sister, wife, mom, really highlighting those other roles that they play. Here are some successful programs that have been implemented across all levels. So this mental health, the NCAA, they actually partner with mental health agencies and provide like free debrief sessions with athletes if needed. The NBA, they provide resources monthly to players that register or sign up. And all of these resources are free. These are workbooks and posters or maybe connections to other resources. MSU, I thought this was Missouri State. It's not. It's actually Minnesota. They have a program called State of Mind, and that is for is peer support. So any former athlete that struggled comes back and gets to essentially be like a mentor for a collegiate athlete that is in their position that they were previously in. So super cool. And then we have, of course, local school-based wellness councils, peer support models that can be followed. And probably the most common piece here would be the collaboration with athletic trainers and social workers because things are a lot smaller in scale for our high school athletes or our smaller collegiate athletes compared to NCAA and NBA. Working with the whole system, parents, teachers, school counselors, social workers, athletic trainers, coaches, making sure that we're addressing all domains of health and wellness for our athlete, not just the physical elements of them. Barriers to implementing effective programs, again, stigma, lack of education, external influences such as unsupportive parents, or maybe there's like budget constraints within your administration. Underserved populations tend to be a lot more difficult to serve. Okay, here's our post-test. True or false? You guys can just drop some of these comments in the chat box there. You can train your brain for resilience the same way you train your body for strength. Actually, I'm just going to tell you guys the answers. Yep, it's 12:58. Jamie, yes, true. You can train your brain for resilience. Yes. Practicing every day is the only way to get better. True or false? Thank you, Cindy. False. Good. Being anxious or depressed means you don't love your sport. True or false? False. Yep. Pushing through mental exhaustion is part of being a strong athlete. True or false? This is one of my favorites because I always get mixed answers on this one. And my co-presenter, her and I actually disagree on this. False. The answer is false. Yes. Thank you, Susan. If I'm having a bad game, all I have to do is think positive thoughts. True or false? False. Yes, Mike. It is a piece of what we need to do or what we have to do, but it is not all that we have to do. There are still other elements that have to be addressed too. Collegiate and professional athletes engage in mental wellness programs. True or false? True. Good job, guys. Okay, and here are some resources for you. Some books, a website. There's fact sheets that are listed on the NCAA website. Here is our Country Crossroads podcast. It's called Why You Worried About It. You can find it on YouTube. Please follow us. Thank you, Sarah. Please follow us. There's actually an episode that I am featured on with my boss, and we do an episode about mental health and athletes, and kind of get more into personal struggles with myself as an athlete and one of my coworkers as an athlete, as well as what we did to kind of overcome that. And then, of course, other podcasts and a Positive Coaching Alliance for those of you that are interested. Feel free to take a picture of this slide if you need. I know somebody asked if we can send the slides. I will work with Jamie and get that going for you guys, if at all possible. And again, thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate you. I wish I could see your faces, but it was really fun to connect with you all. Thank you for being interactive in the chat. Feel free to connect with Country Crossroads. Our website is, of course, listed, and we have social media, so feel free to follow us as well. If you have any questions, I will hang around for a minute or two, but thank you all.
Kelsey, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. This has been excellent. For everyone here, thank you again for coming today. The link to get your certificate of attendance for today, as well as the password, is in the chat for you now. As Jamie mentioned at the top of the webinar, too much traffic all at once can crash the website. So please, if it's not working for you right now, maybe copy and paste it into a Word document and come back to it. But as Kelsey said, if anyone has a question or two, we can make some time.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Sarah. You guys are so sweet. Looks like our participants are dwindling down.
Yep.
You want me to go ahead and stop sharing?
Yeah, if you want to, that would be fine.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and stop the recording.